Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Field McConnell in the house, everybody. We're going to do a bit of a follow-up from a Friday show, the truth about what happened on 9/11. So if you guys have questions for Field, please feel to raise your hand, and I will unmute your mic at some point in this podcast. Or if you cannot speak, then go ahead and write your question underneath his logo on the wall, and I will read those as well. Also, to everybody, please be careful who you're listening to, who you're following, and what you are putting into your mind. It is a thing out there, and I'm noticing a lot of these good podcasters that are telling the truth out there, that are legit. They're telling you the same thing. It is a scary thing, and your mind is a powerful thing. So please, everybody, be careful what you are putting into your mind and who you're following and listening to. Also, to everybody, if you come in late to the podcast, feel free to follow the podcast on the podcast hosts or the social medias, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. Social medias are all verified except for three, and that is YouTube, True Social, and TikTok right now. I'm still waiting for those. I am verifying those accounts for all of you guys to know that those are my legitimate accounts. So please, everybody, give them a follow. If you don't have any of those podcast hosts, you can follow it on the social medias, which are Jenny Jareed Facebook at Jenny_Jareed X, at J Jareed Rumble, at J Jareed True Social, at J Jareed Instagram, the Revival of America right here on Telegram, the Revival of America on YouTube, and then at the official J Jareed over on TikTok. I am trying to put more content over on TikTok, but honestly, everybody, I just forget that that is there and that I have my account over there. So I do apologize for that. But as many of you know, I've been in a course of a move, so I'm finishing and doing all the finalizing of everything. So hopefully we will be back to normal. Well, I think this week we were going to have probably about 4 or 5 shows, so we're getting there, everybody. So bear with me. So if you hear it echo, that is what's going on. My studio isn't fully set up just yet, but it's enough to do these podcasts for you. Also, to everybody, if you have not signed up for the newsletter, please do so. It is free. It's over on the website at therevivalofamerica.com. It gives you the latest updates on the podcast as well as the weekly show lineups. I wasn't able to get that one out this week just because, again, like I said, I'm in the middle of a move. So do sign up for that, everybody, because you will get those. We send those out typically on Sundays. And then last but certainly not least, everybody, if you have a story or a journey to tell, please feel free to reach out to me at the Revival of America at yahoo.com. We'll get your voices, your stories heard, because remember, everybody, it's your voices, your stories. They're going to help shape the new world that we are coming into. And man, are we coming into it, everybody? A lot of things happening. The Pope is dead. He died today. Got Klaus Schwab stepping down on his 88th birthday. So for those of you that are having people tell you nothing is happening, we're not seeing it. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Things are happening behind the scenes. And no, everybody, this is already done. It's already happened. It just has to play out. For those that keep saying that stuff that nothing's happening, it's already done. This is the next scene of this movie that we are watching, hence the phrase, enjoy the show. You are watching a movie. We literally are watching the biggest production in human history. So with that, everybody, we will wait for Field to come in. He may be in here already. Let me double check, and we will get started. But please, everybody, feel free to raise your hand, and we will get your mics unmuted, and you can ask Field your questions. Or, like I said, if you can't speak, you can feel free to write your question underneath his logo on the wall. So with that, I see Field is in here. Field, I have unmuted your mic. It's weird that you come in here muted. I don't know why, but your mic's unmuted. Go ahead. How are you, Field?
Yes, I snuck in. It took a lot of help. People were giving me advice how to find my way. So anyway, I found my way to you, Jenny. Thank you for this opportunity.
Of course. I was just telling the audience before you got in here that we're going to kind of do a follow up. I mean, we can talk about other things too as well, everybody. But I think we'd like to start out with a follow up with the live that we had regarding, Field being the original whistleblower on 9/11 and what really did happen, the truth about it. So if you guys, want to ask him those questions, we'll start out with that, and then we can kind of go into things such as the Pope dying today, and then Klaus Schwab stepping down, and what we could potentially see here in the coming days, weeks. up to happen, and even in the financial world. So, Phil, do you want to do a just a kind of follow up from our show on Friday regarding 9/11 and the truth of what happened?
I can if you'd like me to. I honestly haven't watched our show from Friday because keep in mind this past weekend was Easter weekend, and my 31-year-old daughter, her husband, their three children aged 7, 5, and 3, and my daughter, who's 31, she's expecting grandchild number 4. And so I've been sort of busy. Right now, I'm alone in my house enjoying a moment of peace, but I could either summarize or you could summarize or we could go straight to Q&A, whatever your professional opinion is as the best course for us to navigate. It doesn't matter to me. Over to you.
Well, I'll give the floor to you if you want to summarize, and then I do have a few questions that have already been posted on the wall. I can read those to you, and then everybody, please feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. We will unmute your mic, or I will unmute your mic. Field typically gives us 90 minutes of his time, everybody, so be mindful of that. So go ahead, Field, if you want to summarize, and then I will get these questions. I will look at these questions, and once you're done, I'll start reading them.
Okay. Well, on the morning of 9/11, I was doing what everybody else around the world was doing, watching the mainstream media in the United States. And keep in mind that my occupational background was being a fighter interceptor pilot for the Air Force. And what fighter interceptor means, it's a fighter type aircraft that's assigned to the interceptor mode or service. And the name of that service is the North American Air Defense Force. And that has Canadian and American fighter pilots that are on alert. It's like being a fireman at a firehouse, where if the klaxon goes off, you put your overalls on, slide down the pole, and get to your truck. And then when the truck has an adequate number of persons on board, that truck pulls out and goes to the scene of the fire. Well, the same is sort of the same for interceptor pilots. If NORAD, North American Air Defense Command headquarters in what's the name of that place? It's underground facility in Colorado. If they detect a uninvited guest into North American airspace, which could be Canada or the US, then I had to think. I thought I heard a noise outside, which I didn't. It's the wind. Uh, but anyway, they find the nearest North American air defense alert site to the incoming threat, and they launch two fighters off. And the name of that mission is ID Kill. And what that means is get out as fast as you can get to your airplane, take off, regardless of what the weather is. The weather no longer matters because the mission is more important than the weather regulations. And then fly pretty much at very high airspeed towards an intercept point. And when you get there, the flight of two fighters would separate, and one fighter, that doesn't matter if it's the senior guy or the junior guy, one would be assigned to go fly up to the aircraft and take a visual look at it, whether it's day or night, it didn't matter, because interceptor aircraft had ID lights, which stands for identification lights. It's like a cornering lamp on a high-end car. It's a very bright light that is pointed off to the right of the aircraft, uh, so you can illuminate whatever you've just intercepted. And then it's up to the discretion of the pilot that does the ID part of the mission. And he's going to say one of two words. He's going to say friendly or hostile. And if he says hostile, he's going to light his afterburner and turn as hard as possible to the left to gain as much separation from the hostile target. And then the other pilot that would have been dropped back into a firing position for either an AIM 7 or subsequent AMRAAM radar missile or an AIM-9 heat-seeking missile. If the first pilot says hostile, the guy in the back has already been cleared to fire because they were told their mission was ID kill. And time is of the essence. So when the guy that says hostile pulls away from the target, the guy in the back, meaning not in the back of an airplane, but the guy about a mile behind the hostile aircraft is going to pull the trigger on a missile of his selection, whatever he thinks is the best. And back when I was doing this 30 years ago, the most accurate missile was the AIM-9 heat seeker. It had a 90% PK probability of kill, but if you fired two of them, and why not? They only cost about 100,000 apiece, and yet what you're protecting either Canada or the United States from is millions or billions of dollars in potential damages. So if it were me, I would fire two heat seekers because then you get a 99% chance of kill. That's called a PK. So anyway, on the morning of 9/11, based on my experience in the air defense world and also my experience with the airlines, I'd been an airline pilot since 1978. So 9/11 came 23 years later. And in that span of 23 years, I'd gotten a phone call from my sister, whose name was, and I said was because I think she's no longer among the living. Her name was Christine Marcy, and she was two things that make me very much ashamed of her lack of judgment. She was a traitor against the United States of America, and she was highly placed in the U.S. Department of Justice, which should tell all of us all we need to know about the Department of Justice as it existed in the period of 1871 to October 1st of 2024, when under Trump we became a constitutional republic and we no longer had to live as a colony of the English fake royals. And I say fake royals because they are fake, they're not royal. And in today's news, the Pope um, passed away. And I find it significant that they rang a bell at the Vatican 88 times. And I'm going to give people about 3 seconds to figure that out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 88 is significant in this case because the Jesuits at the Vatican have been rumored to be allies or friends with the Nazi Party of Germany, and 88 links directly to Adolf Hitler because they would say Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler, and both of those H's are the eighth letter of the alphabet. So 88 really points the finger right to Adolf Hitler. And he's probably the most infamous Nazi there is or was. But then one of the fake royals in England, Queen Elizabeth II, was also a German Nazi. And if people don't know that by now, you have to ask yourself, how is it you could not know this by now when it's been public knowledge for 15 years or more? But anyway, let's not worry about that. So on the morning of 9/11, knowing that I had told my sister, Christine Marcy, in December of 1988 about how to get federal prisoners back from Hawaii to the mainland, they couldn't be tried in a federal court in Hawaii, so they had to come back to the mainland to appear in federal court. And yet the airlines were playing hardball with the Department of Justice because of the um, factors in case of a evacuation of an airliner. You know, if there was one, two, three, or five or any other number of federal prisoners, they would all be shackled with handcuffs on, and it would be hard for them to evacuate the aircraft. So the airlines were told they weren't going to be able to haul federal prisoners anymore. And I was well aware of this, and I told my sister, "That's no problem. You can you can get obsolete or obsolescent airliners from Northwest." And I told her the two types that we were getting rid of then. One is the Boeing 727 100, and the second was the DC 9 30 with 15 engines and long range tanks. And either of those airplanes could have hauled a bunch of prisoners back to the U.S. And that's how to get around the fact the airlines were not going to allow federal prisoners that were shackled and handcuffed to be on the airline flights anymore, which was probably good conservative judgment. So on the morning of 9/11, I recognized the behavior of the airliners or supposed airliners that everybody saw. Now, the real airliners had already been taken away. And where did they go? They went to Whiskey 386 Alpha Airspace. Pardon my cough. And the Whiskey 386 Alpha Airspace entry point was about 60 miles east of Norfolk, Virginia. And the military commander, the guy that was coordinating access into Whiskey 386 or denying access to Whiskey 386, his call sign, and I'm not making this up, you can look it up, it's a fact, it's a matter of fact. The call sign of that military professional on that morning was Giant Killer. And it's really funny what these guys do to expose themselves. And that's where I come in because, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not delusional. I've been doing this since the morning of 9/11. I've been asked to expose evil, and I've been very productive. And people have resented me, but the people that resent me tend to be traitors or child traffickers, many of which are in our Congress and Senate, and that they collectively could be referred to as the deep state government. And they're so despicable. And some of them have been executed. And I'm not proud, but I'm also not ashamed that I helped accelerate their execution. And two of the people that I helped accelerate the execution of were George H.W. Bush, who was the president of the U.S., which I find remarkable since he was a German Nazi. But he wasn't the first German Nazi to be in a position of the leadership of a Western nation. Queen, what's her name, Elizabeth II, was a German Nazi, and she was in charge of England. And the other guy that I helped uh, eradicate from the world was John McCain, who sometimes he or his family have considered him an American hero. Well, they got one letter wrong. John McCain was an American zero, Zero, and he was executed. He elected to take 2 bullets to the left temple because the United States military tribunals are very gentlemanly or ladylike. And George H.W. Bush, even though he was very advanced in terms of age, he was euthanized with a lethal injection, which is a little cowardly, but that's okay. They're all cowards. And who are they? Okay, I'll tell you who they are. They're the deep state government of the United States that was running our country into the ground intentionally while in elected positions in the Congress, and the Congress includes the Senate. And what I'm saying is that many members of the Congress and the Senate were both traitors, traitors, and child traffickers. And does it cause me any concern to say this? No, I said it last Friday, and I'm not dead yet. So I think that the deep state and the global cabal and the fake royals and the Vatican Jesuits have learned there are certain people you might not want to engage because you might have your ass handed to you. And if somebody's going to lose their ass in a battle between me and the deep state, it's not going to be me, because there's only 535 members of Congress, and they're not all bad, but I'd say 90% of them are, because if I know they're traitors and child traffickers, they know that, and yet they're willing to cash their checks and accrue retirement value for not doing their job. So that sort of brings us up to date on 9/11. And the key point to take away from this, whether you believe it or not, is the United States government's deep state tried to vilify Muslims and Islamists and blame all of this carnage on them. And they didn't do it. They could not have done it. They didn't know about the technology. And also Serco, which is a very corrupt English French organization, they're not too bright either. They did not know that the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, which was used to steer the airliners or the drones involved in 9/11, Serco over in England and France, you know, they were, and I believe they are, evil, but they're not even good at being evil, because they didn't know there was a back door in the BUAP, Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot, which, by the way, was not a Boeing part. It was a General Electric part, and the cowards at General Electric have subsequently changed their name from General Electric to someone else, and I don't even know what their name is. Somebody in the chat room does, and maybe they'll post it. But one of the major stockholders in the new General Electric is BlackRock. And if anybody does not know about BlackRock, you need to investigate who they are and what they do. And I'll just help you a little bit. They help undermine the security of the United States of America, and they help support the people that are willing to try to destroy our own country, and have been doing it for a long time as the shadow government. And they're doing it even though they're being paid to be congressmen or senators. And each one of those parties is known to the military white hats. And each one of those parties, if they don't seek a plea agreement to spare their life and to surrender their retirement, then they're probably going to be executed, and they should be executed anyway. Because on the morning of 9/11 alone, they killed 2,998 innocent people from a variety of countries, most of which was the United States of America, but there were Europeans, Africans, people from the Orient, uh, allies of ours and friends of ours that also died. And I still haven't found the picture of the little girl who, when the United States government, meaning the deep state, meaning the corrupt bastards, and I'm being kind. I said corrupt bastards. I didn't say what I was thinking, because there's ladies here. But the people that did 9/11, by and large, were American deep staters like my sister, like George H.W. Bush, like John McCain, like both Bill and Hillary Clinton. And by the way, the Clintons are not Clintons, they're Rockefellers. And if you've not heard that before, look it up. Find out who Bill Clinton's biological sperm donor was. It was a Rockefeller. And it was a Rockefeller who was the governor of Arkansas back in 46 or 47, who impregnated Bill Clinton's mother, who I think was from Hot Springs. And I'll bet there were some hot springs in that bed after one of the Rockefellers impregnated her. And that's a conjecture. I don't know. But his name was Winthrop Rockefeller. And so anybody that doubts what I'm saying to you, I don't blame you, because when somebody gets this information for the first time, they don't want to believe it. And I don't want to believe it either. It's been quite an emotional burden for me to know this for 24 years. And what makes me more emotionally saddened is I've made this information available to the United States government since the morning of 9/11. And yet here we are towards the end of April of 2025, and the truth of 9/11 has not been promulgated around the world. And those days are soon to be over. Donald Trump has promised to declassify 9/11, and I can't wait for him to do so, because I would almost expect a phone call, because my track record on 9/11 truth is very mature. And I'm not saying I'm mature, but I've been saying the same thing since the morning of 9/11. And yet it hasn't gotten through the military industrial complex of traitors. That's my choice of words. That's not Dwight Eisenhower's choice of words. But Dwight Eisenhower, as he was leaving office, which probably would have been in late 60 or early 61, he said to beware the military industrial complex. I think maybe Dwight Eisenhower should have been more direct, but maybe he knew that he would be killed if he told the truth. Just like John F. Kennedy was killed because he told the truth. And, in the Bible, it says, the truth will set you free. Well, the Bible is not limited by the deep state of the American government traitors. That's my choice of words. Traitors, traitors and child traffickers. That's who infests the halls of Congress. So that's a thumbnail of what happened on 9/11. And I'll just finish with a very somber note. When the U.S. state or deep state government wanted to take all the evidence away from World Trade One, World Trade Two, including 2,998 innocent victim humans, they hauled all of the debris, DEBRIS, to the Fresh Kills landfill uh, just off the coast of New York City. And there was a little girl, I think she was about 4. I haven't found the picture yet. It's out there on the internet and it'll get to me, or I'll get to it. The little girl was holding a sign outside the Fresh Kills landfill, which would be called a garbage dump. And her handwritten sign said, "It's very hard for me to talk about this. My daddy is not garbage." And she was being respectful and resolute, and she was about 4. And if a little 4-year-old girl can say, "My daddy is not garbage," how come it's taken 24 years for the United States Congress and senators to grow some balls and support that little girl and honor her father, whoever he was? And I'll just stop right there, Jenny. That's sort of a thumbnail sketch of 9/11. And if people want more details, they can just keep listening to you, Jenny, because I'm not going anywhere. And the truth does not change. So over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Fields. So you briefly, you spoke on George H.W. Bush. So I have a question here. It's a two-part question for you from Steeple Jack. It says you hinted on Friday that you thought George W. Bush was part of the White Hats. How could this be if he was a part of Skull and Bones from Yale? So that's the first part. You can answer, and then I'll read the second part.
I don't recall saying George W. Bush was a white hat. What I might have said, that maybe if I didn't state it clearly, George W. Bush, the younger Bush, who was the president on the morning of 9/11, he was removed from the White House by his father, George H.W. Bush, who was a retired president or former president, but George H.W. Bush was not an incumbent. And so, why in the world was he in the White House on the evening of September 10th and the morning of September 11th? Until proven wrong in a court of law, now that we have constitutional court as of the 1st of October of 2024, it's my opinion, and I believe it's a fact, and I believe it's a fact that could be proven wrong, but I don't know how because I do not believe I'm wrong. But George H.W. Bush got the details of how the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot worked and what its capabilities were. And George H.W. Bush got those details from my own sister, Christine Marcy, and her counterpart in Pizzagate and Pedogate, Hillary Clinton. And people, they sometimes say, "Oh, Field, you should shut up. You're going to get killed." Well, I've been saying this for 24 years and I'm not dead yet, and I'm not going to be quiet. So, no, I don't think I was quoted accurately by calling George W. Bush a white hat, but I think he was, I'm not going to be vulgar, but I think he was taken advantage of by his father, G.H.W. Bush, who then, along with Hillary Clinton and the deep staters, they covered up what was really going on 9/11, and they wanted to blame it on the Muslims and the Islamists because, by the testimony of a highly placed four-star Army general whose name I can picture him, I just can't remember what his name is. But he said the plan during the run-up to 9/11 and the subsequent days or weeks after 9/11, they wanted to go into 7 foreign nations and pretty much destroy them. And those nations would have included Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, maybe Kuwait. I don't know. It's a matter of history, but I don't, once I believe I know well what the history is, I sometimes will freshen my memory up, but I seldom get it wrong. And one of the ways I believe I can prove that I'm not wrong is I'm still alive. And they just love to kill whistleblowers. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't kill them fast enough. And that's why I'm speaking to you today, Jenny. And I hope to speak to you next week too, because I'd like to hang around. I sort of enjoy being alive. And this is Easter weekend. I have had my 31-year-old daughter, her husband, and their 3 children, age 7, 5, and 3, here celebrating Easter, which is resurrection, which means Jesus Christ died and then he was resurrected. And I wonder how many of your listeners know what day Jesus Christ was born on. Jenny, that's a tough question. Um, but you might know it, or somebody in your chat room might know it. Or maybe I should just tell everybody right now, because it's very germane to what we're talking about.
It's been said it's 9/11.
Yeah, that's right. Now, that's got to shock some people because we've been told that he was born on Christmas morning and he died on Easter. Well, um, way back when in history, we went from the Julian calendar to a Georgian, I think that was the name, calendar. So a lot of the dates got confused. And I'm not being unkind to Israel, but if you want to see the value of confusion, Israel's motto used to be, "We will wage war with deception." And a very good example of that is when And if my brain was a little less tired, I could tell you exactly the date that the USS Liberty, which was an intelligence gathering ship, was attacked by the Israeli Air Force during a time of unrest. The Israeli Air Force airplanes were repainted in Egyptian colors and insignia, and that was Israel trying to deceive the world as they attacked basically an unarmed, uh, antique, obsolete transport category ship that was intelligence gathering. And I don't think that's very gentlemanly. I think if Israel wants to attack America, use your own planes. Don't try to blame it on the Egyptians because you never know who's watching. And sometimes people that were watching back then are still around. And maybe I'm one of them. Maybe I'm not. We'll find out. But the Israel wanted to get into a war involving Egypt and the United States. Well, it's a little late for that, Israel, because your aircraft and your aircraft commanders, meaning the fighter pilots in your aircraft, when they found that the target ship had an American flag, they questioned the kill orders and they said, we just found out this is an American ship. We don't want to attack it. To which, and I can't promise this is 100% accurate, but it's 95% accurate. They said the command to destroy the ship stands, as if the command structure of the Israelis Air Force was saying, yeah, we know it's an American ship, destroy it. And there was also an American submarine submerged. Oh, thank you. Yeah, my family just got back from a shopping trip. Um, yeah, and back to what I was saying, there was a U.S. submarine off the top of my very tired head. I think it was called the Amberjack. It was submerged and it was within range to launch a torpedo. And Secretary McNamara and President LBJ had commanded the Navy command structure if the Israeli fighters, painted up like Egyptians, couldn't sink the USS Liberty, that the Amberjack was supposed to fire a torpedo at it. And Jenny, do you know if I've ever explained this on your show before? Because I'm getting to a critical point.
No, I don't think you have. I don't think you have.
Okay, well, the Israelis couldn't sink the Liberty, so they had to go to the backup plan, which was the Amberjack, which was submerged within lethal range, and they fired a torpedo. But just like on a human body, the rib cage is the structure that keeps our flesh where it's supposed to be, and it protects our vital organs. And the torpedo hit the equivalent of a rib and bounced off the ship. And so, even though they tried to kill innocent Americans, they didn't get it done. And I think the date of that attack, I'm pretty sure it was 1968. And I'm
67.
guessing it was 1967.
Yes, I just looked it up for you, Field.
Thank, oh, thank you. Can you tell me the date? Was it June 7 or 8?
You're good. It says June 5th through the 10th, 1967. Liberty was attacked with multiple, yeah, it was attacked on June 5th through the 10th.
And guess
Though
what? They
that's
didn't sink it, did they? Go ahead.
no, you're good. It gives you that 5 day range right there.
Okay. Now, this, I don't think there's any way you'd know this unless you looked it up. But do you know the link between John McCain, the senator that was executed, as well he should be, he was a traitor. But do you know the link between Senator John McCain and the USS Liberty?
No, you can share
I
with
didn't
us.
think. Yeah, I didn't think you'd know it. And I'm not looking down on you. In fact, that's a perfect opportunity to say, no, I'm looking up on you. I find you a very accomplished podcaster that is not afraid to let the truth be told on your shows. John McCain's own father, who was John McCain Sr., he was a four-star admiral. He was assigned to cover up the crimes against the USS Liberty. And believe it or not, there are still some surviving crew members of the USS Liberty. And I've reached out to that community and I've shared the truth with them. And, if Donald Trump wants to declassify 9/11, maybe he'd also be willing to declassify the USS Liberty. And that brings me around to one more evil McCain. Uh, in 1942, and it was on a date in August, and it was the Battle of Savo, Savo Island, and that there was a narrow passageway between Savo Island and California Island. And John McCain's grandfather, who was also a four-star admiral, had been directed by his military chain of command to sanitize, Sanitize, that body of water between Savo Island and California Island. And he blew it off because that McCain, just like the other two, was a complete loser. And he disregarded a direct order to sanitize, which means keep the Japanese Navy out of that strait, Strait. And he didn't do it because he was too lazy and a coward and a traitor. But see, that's what the McCains, all three of them, had in common. They were traitors to America, and two out of three of them got promoted to four-star admirals. And the only one that didn't get to be an admiral was Senator John McCain. And it's my opinion, as somebody who flew a lot more than he ever flew, that he was a horseshit pilot and pretty much a bad person. Now, that might sound judgmental, but I didn't just fall off the avocado truck. So I've been doing this for a long time. I believe everything I've spoken in this thumbnail sketch of 9/11 and the USS Liberty is extremely accurate. Jenny, over to you.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for always sharing your knowledge. I appreciate it. Okay, here's the second part of that question from Steeplejack. It says, "Do you think Tucker was formerly CIA and has flipped as I remember seeing a video of him calling people who question 9/11 as being parasites?"
I don't know the answer to that question, so I'll thank Steeplejack because it's quite rare, and I'm not being a snob, but when I've been broadcasting on Jenny's platform for the last 2 years, I'll bet there's only been 5 times where I could not answer a question because I didn't know. But we can certainly find out. Uh, Tucker Carlson and Representative Kurt Weldon, 1 week ago today, on Monday of last week, they put out a show about 9/11, and that's exactly why Jenny invited me to come on and talk on her platform on Friday of last week because we were trying to piggyback or take advantage of the synergy or the synchronized timing between Tucker Carlson and Representative Kurt Weldon. And for the people who don't know the significance of Representative Kurt Weldon, he was very aggressive when a senior member of the House of Representatives. He was very, very senior, and he was totally focused on exposing 9/11. So, what the cowards in the deep state government, and when I say cowards in the deep state government, I'm being redundant because if they weren't cowards, one of which is my own sister, they wouldn't have been serving the deep state. they would be upholding their oath to the Constitution as members of Congress and Senate. But by and large, they didn't do that. They're a bunch of traitors that are motivated by money, and there's a lot more money in child trafficking than there is in being a congressman or a senator. So I do not know the answer to that question, Steeplejack, but I'm intrigued by the possibilities. And so now I'm going to invoke the power of Jenny's chat room, which I find to be a collection of many, many people, measured probably in the thousands of people that are very good investigators, or 9/11 sleuths, SLEUTHS, not like the deep state, which are 9/11 sluts, SLUTS. And a slut can be male or female, and it means somebody that will do anything for money. If you're trying to destroy the United States of America for money, at the same time you're trafficking children around the globe for money, you've got a pretty formidable enemy. And it's the opinion of that enemy that you guys are all going down, DOWN. And, I sometimes talk as a Marine, which isn't popular among non-Marines, although it's very popular of the widows or the children of fallen Marines. And there's one such 91-year-old Marine that sort of likes the way I talk. And I won't mention his name, but his daughter is listening to this broadcast right now. And I won't mention her name. The names don't matter. God knows the names. God knows my name. I know God's name. I work for God. He asked me to expose evil. So I'm just going to ask Jenny. Jenny, if God asked me to expose evil, do you think he's happy with my effort so far?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think he is too, because God has blessed me over and over in many ways. And I would have to have another 5 shows to explain all the ways God has reached out to me and said, well done. And he says it quietly. He didn't want everybody to hear that. But if you look in the Bible at Psalm 94:16 or Ephesians 5:11, both one's in the Old Testament, one's in the New Testament. It's interesting. The book of Ephesians is really the book about the battle for good versus evil, that's the battle we're in right now. And the good guys are winning, not the evil parties. You can look at my own family. I'm on the good team. My only sibling was, past tense, on the evil team. And I don't think she's around anymore. And yet I'm alive and kicking. And I am very blessed to be allowed to come speak on Jenny's platform. And the thing I like best about Jenny's platform is not Jenny, although I have great respect for her. It goes to 100 countries. Many of those countries have a large Muslim population. And I think I'm a subject matter expert. That's SME. I believe that I'm a subject matter expert on the truth of 9/11. And if somebody came up to my office door right now with an Uzi and said, you got one chance to retract any statements that you've made, I would probably say, fuck you. But here's one more. The Muslims had nothing to do with 9/11, and the United States government, deep state, violated the 9th commandment, where it says, do not bear false witness against your neighbor. And our neighbors are Muslims, Islamists, people that don't believe in God, and people of every faith system. And yet we all have to find a way to respect each other, and we have to find a way to cooperate, and we have to find a way to protect our children, protect our families, provide for lodging, provide for good food that's not poisoned like it is in America. How's that for a new subject? And that's not something I'm unaware of, Jenny, or I wouldn't have said it. But there's a lot of stuff put into the American food that is not allowed in Europe. Well, if the Europeans are smart enough not to poison the Europeans, why is it that the United States of America and the food industrial complex, why are they trying to poison us? Uh, I would invite them, honestly, to come to Plum City and try to poison me. And then when I rose up on the third day and I was alive, they'd have to swallow hard and say, we probably should not have come here. But anyway, enough about me, Jenny. Over to you.
Thank you, Field. Okay, since we're talking about 9/11, this is from Steve Godfrey. What is your assessment of Ashton Forbes and his orb theory of MH317? Or it's MH17, right? Is
Mm-mm.
that yeah?
Are you
And
talking
then
about Ashton Forbes?
yeah, and then he's asking, Steve Godfrey's asking, is this by chance an obfuscation to provide cover for 9/11? I probably misspoke on I mispronounced that word, but yeah, that's from Steve Godfrey.
Yeah, well, Steve, thanks for that question. That's great. Ashton Forbes is a blithering idiot, which, I'm not being critical of other idiots or other people that blither, but Ashton Forbes presents himself as the original relator of the truth of MH370. He's full of bovine excrement. I'm the original, and I am, and it can be proven. How can it be proven? Take a look at the time that MH370 landed at Diego Garcia on the morning of the 9th of March of 2014 and taxied into a hangar that prevented satellite or aircraft surveillance. Nobody could see it, but it was there. It set the parking brake remotely. It shut down the engines remotely. And when the British, American, and Israeli government officials went up to open door one left on the Boeing 777, they didn't get a signal from inside. The senior flight attendant, male or female, doesn't matter, should have given them a thumbs up signal, which means that the evacuation slide has been safetied, meaning it's not going to deploy. And then the people on the outside of the aircraft could open the door. But they never got that signal, so they opened the door anyway. And when they went into the MH370 aircraft, and just to frustrate Forbes, excuse me, I would challenge Ashton Forbes to tell me what the identification number on the left side of the nose gear door was on the morning of 9 March 2014. And I'm not going to help him because he needs the help of a psychiatrist. And I'm not a psychiatrist. But I put out at about 3 hours after the aircraft was landed safely at Diego Garcia, I put out a YouTube called the Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot. And my diagnosis was accurate and sad. The people who did MH370, and notice for the record, I haven't said Serco, Serco, yet. Oh, I slipped. Yeah, Serco is the biggest company you never heard of, and they wanted to control the world. And I don't think they want to do that anymore. I think they've been beaten over the nose, just like a dog who's got an angry master with a rolled up newspaper. And Serco's primary stockholder is Prince William of England, and he's a fake royal. He's married to Kate Middleton, who, when she was ostensibly pregnant, she used a prosthesis that sometimes got moved off to the left side or the right side of her tummy Good luck with that, Kate Middleton. Good luck with that, Prince William. And Prince William's father is not the delinquent, and that's my choice of words. That's not Jenny saying that. That's me, Field. Prince Charles, who somebody would like to say, Field, you're dated. His name is King Charles. I said, not to me, he's not. The only king I've ever been aware of, and the only king I elect to serve is King Jesus. So that puts an end to the fake royals, as far as I'm concerned. But on the morning of MH370 landing safely with 239 corpses on the aircraft, why is it that Ashton Forbes continues to lie? Is it out of ignorance or malfeasance? He can't be that ignorant. I mean, he he apparently can put his shoes on in the morning. I have not seen a picture of him with no trousers, so I think he can get dressed become before he comes out of his dwelling. But he certainly doesn't know his ass from third base about MH370. And furthermore, Ashton, just before I make your name go away forever, did you or did you not, Ashton, in March, late March of 2014, did you or did you not accurately predict that the aircraft used for MH370 would be flown remotely from Amsterdam to Donetsk, Ukraine, where it would be destroyed with not only the 239 victims of MH370, but also roughly 40 fresh kills. And when I say fresh kills, I'm talking about Caucasian bodies that had no blood in them, and those Caucasian bodies were wearing winter clothing, even though they were flying down to the south of the equator in Kuala Lumpur during the hot season. And how many bodies with no blood in them have ever boarded a jet airliner in the history of jet aviation, going back to the 707 and the DC-8? And by the way, for people that don't know a lot about aviation, which is Serco, they certainly don't know their ass from third base, or Ashton Forbes. I don't know what he knows. I know he doesn't know the truth, but there's never been a human that walked onto a jet airliner, and that was a song by the Steve Miller Band, I think. Big old jet airliner. Anyway, yeah, it's very rare that a corpse walks onto a jet airliner and then is on board when it's blown out of the sky over Donetsk, Ukraine. And yet, regardless of how I forecast that, in mid to late March of 2014, I told the internet that the original MH370 and, and all 239 corpses would be on that aircraft when it was blown out of the sky over Donetsk, Ukraine. And if anybody thinks I'm bragging about me, Field McConnell, you're wrong. I'm bragging about God. God does not like the shedding of innocent blood. God does not like dishonesty. And God will stand by the people who are willing to expose evil for the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of God on earth. Over to you, Jenny.
Amen to that. Thank you, Field. All right, we're going to go to some questions here. Some hands were raised. So, Cal, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead and ask Field your question.
Hi. I've been reading books of this historian that he's been telling that Hitler was really fighting against Stalin and the Bolsheviks, who were actually the ones that murdered the Romanov family. And from what this man writes in his books, he makes it out that Hitler was really fighting for the German people. He really wasn't the big evil person they made him out to be. And he even lists in his books letters that Hitler wrote in his diaries and letters that alluded to this, that But it looks like they made him out, if this is true, to be almost like the Trump of today, that he was the big bad evil person. And so I get confused with the word Nazi because they make him look like he was bad if this man's books are true. And I think it was opposite of what we've been taught. Do you know?
Okay, are you asking me if I know?
Yes.
Okay. The short answer is I do not know the bottom line to what you asked me, but I do understand the nature of the question. So let's do this in a series of steps. The Romanov family that was murdered in 1918 by bad elements of the Russian government. Do you know? I think your name is Cal. I don't know. I'm not good with names. And I certainly don't want to know the names of any ladies because I'm a widower and I might be attracted to somebody's intellect, sort of like I am to Jenny's, but she told me to buzz off. And so I learned my lesson. Uh, but anyway, do you know, Cal, who Melania Trump is descended from? Which family in Russia?
The Romanovs.
Yes. And they had 7 children. And when the Romanov family was to be eradicated, they killed the mother, the father, and 5 of the 7 children. And 2 of the children escaped. How they escaped, I don't know. But it almost has to be that there were some very respectful, responsible Christian servants in the Russian command structure that provided for the safety of those 2 little girls, one of which was Melania Trump's grandmother. Have you heard that story before?
Yes, I have, and I learned that from you.
Oh, well, thank you. And, be careful learning stuff from me because I always try to tell the truth, but I always caveat that with if I'm saying what is a prognostication or a suggestion. In other words, if I don't know it's a fact, then I will admit I do not know it's a fact. So let me get back to the extermination of the Romanovs. And before I do that, I want to thank God. Dear God, thank you. And I want to thank President Trump. Dear President Trump, thank you. President Trump, thank you for protecting Melania. And God, thank you for protecting Melania's grandmother and Melania's, I guess that would be a great aunt, the sister to her grandmother. Because when these bad Russians wanted to eradicate the Romanovs, probably because they were Orthodox Christians, that's a probably, that's not a statement. But they were so evil that after they killed the 5 children and the 2 adults, then they put them into an open pit fire, uh, whatever you want to call it, a place where you could burn things, and they poured gasoline all over them so that their bodies could not be identified. I think that is extremely evil. And if I had been around in 1918 and I'd been over there as a tourist, I would have liked to try to interrupt that, even if it cost me my life, because there's more good people in the world than bad people. And the bad people are generally well known to the intelligence and military apparatus of any country. And such had to be the case in Russia. And so the elimination of the Romanov family is exactly like 9/11. It was a failure. 2 of the Romanov children survived, one of which is Melania Trump's grandmother. And President Trump and Melania, God bless you both. And if I have spoken something that's inaccurate, you know how to find me. I'm in Plum City, Wisconsin, and you certainly have the ability to get my phone number, which I'm not going to publish, not because I'm a coward, but because I work 18 hours a day, and I'm going to work until I drop. And God himself has been very, very kind to me in more ways than I could even express. But he's sent me an angel. And of course, I have another angel up in heaven. My wife from England died of thyroid cancer 5 years ago when I was being held unlawfully in Florida with the contributions unlawfully of the 17th District of Florida courts and Governor Ron DeSantis. See you later, Ron. You're done. And Governor Tony Evers of Wisconsin. Now, that was a short run, Tony, but you're done. These people that want to deny American citizens the right to freedom of speech, why would they want to do that? Aren't we Americans, or aren't we Canadians, or aren't we UK citizens, or aren't we French, German, Swedish, Russian, Ethiopian, Yemen, Saudi Arabian, Iraq, Iran? Aren't we? I'll even throw in a side order of Turkey, because I've been to Turkey. I was very well treated in Turkey, and I happen to like their food. But this is not a diet show. It's it's a show to expose evil, and that's that's my that's my goal. I've been asked by God to expose evil in Ephesians 5:11 and Psalm 94:16, and I'm not dead yet. And yet, other truth tellers, including Bill Cooper, look that name up. William Cooper. He allegedly was shot and killed by two sheriff's deputies in Arizona. And he did 20 years ago what I've been doing since he died. I've sort of picked up the mission and I've tried to do it my way, which is a great song written by Paul Anka, who is a Lebanese Canadian. And it was made popular first by Frank Sinatra and then Elvis Presley. And sometimes, if you're trying to emulate some other person that has the nerve to speak the truth, you have to do it in a way differently to what they did that got themselves killed. And I have a medical, well, in my house right now, I have my daughter who's a vet tech, and she could come in here and say that under penalty of perjury that my father, which is me, of course, is alive, and I am alive. But anyway, um, the question that you asked me, I think you didn't you ask me about the Romanov family, or was that a tangent to what you asked me?
Well, I asked you if you had known anything about if Hitler was really not the bad culprit that they taught us he was. And he was fighting against Stalin and the Bolsheviks and what was happening in Russia. He was totally against that. And this man puts all his, he's got a lot of letters in there. And he says in his books that he writes, you know that you have the right receipts and truth because at that particular time in history, when people wrote letters or put things in their diaries, you could confirm them to be true. And I do know that the ones that killed the dynasty of the Romanovs by his books, they were very, very barbaric, just awful. So I don't know if that's true about Hitler really not being the bad guy they taught us. It's almost parallels, if it is true, like they've always painted Trump, and we're almost living a reenactment all over again right now.
Yes, I see what you're saying, and I believe that it's extremely likely that your understanding is accurate. But now I'm going to ask you a question, young lady. When the Pope died today, how many times did they ring the cathedral bell over in the Vatican area? Do you remember how many times they rang the bell?
I think you said it was 88.
Yes, and 88 stands for Heil Hitler. And so, because H is the eighth letter, and Heil Hitler is what everybody said when they were pledging loyalty to the Fuhrer, Adolf Hitler. And so I've just learned something, and I'm 75 years old. I've learned that I've got to find that book and read it, so I will be more well informed the next time I get to a serious question like this. But I think it's entirely possible that Hitler was a good guy. And what I know firsthand, even though I only know half of it, I know who got Hitler out of Germany safely. And young lady, have you heard me explain that on a Jenny show yet? Who got Hitler out of Germany at night on an aircraft because the Russians were coming to kill him?
No, I didn't hear that, but you certainly are putting my question in my mind to be true of what I'm learning here. But it's just amazing the lies that have been given to us, and we believed it forever and ever.
Yes,
So
and
Cal,
what did Donald Trump? Oh, go ahead, young lady.
no, this is Jenny. I just wanted to reiterate to Cal that yes, it is being put out there and said quite often about Hitler not being this quote unquote bad man that they had portrayed him to be. So I would definitely keep doing that research because I've done some research on it as well, and it looks to be that way as you are speaking on.
Well,
Okay,
I'm
well,
for the
Jenny,
conversation
go
on
ahead,
it.
young lady.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm
That's
just saying,
good. Go ahead.
I thank you for the confirmation on this because I believe everything you've taught us. I believe Jenny brings the truth with you, and this only confirms what I've read from this man and his books, and he is a plethora of information.
Well, thank you very much. And, I've tried to inform people that have a desire to learn as much as I could tell them. But a lot of what I tell people comes from people like yourself that open my eyes. But when the Vatican rang a bell 88 times today, 88 is H. Heil Hitler. And Hitler, now I'm going to give you a little history lesson, and you might already know it, young lady. And if you do know it or don't know it, it doesn't matter when I'm done getting this out awkwardly, you will know it. The the Royal Navy, that means the Navy of England, when it went over to help Hitler escape the Russian troops that were coming to kill him, there were two people that escaped. There was Hitler and his finance director, whose name I just cannot remember. And I've even looked it up, but if I find it, I'll publish it with Jenny. But the Russians wanted to come and exterminate Hitler and his finance director, and they didn't get it done. And I don't like using the term military hero. Yeah, like John McCain, people in America still blindly think he was a hero. He was really an incompetent pilot. And I went to the Naval Academy I was 13 years behind him, but he had to have a tutor just to pass the basic subjects, and they never would have given him a tutor and graduated him if his father and grandfather were not both four-star admirals. They were named McCain. Okay, and earlier in this show, I explained how John McCain's grandfather at the Battle of Savo Strait, SAVO Strait, STRAIT, in August of 1942, and I think I stopped short of saying this, that complete inept traitor, John McCain's grandfather, caused the greatest loss of gross tonnage of U.S. Navy ships and the greatest loss of lives of U.S. Navy sailors and officers in history, and yet he was a four-star failure. And John McCain's father was a 4-star failure. He tried to cover up the USS Liberty, and the USS Liberty involved the contributions of corrupt leaders like LBJ and the Secretary of Defense, McNamara, who arranged to have the USS Amberjack sitting within torpedo range so that if the Israeli aircraft painted in Egyptian colors could not sink the Liberty, which they did not. And there was some heroic activity by very young sailors that prevented, and I didn't finish that story, so I'll finish right now. When they were getting shot up by the Israelis fighters, um, a cable that conducted AC, alternating current, to the radio equipment and the command, well, it's called the bridge of the USS Liberty. They could not communicate, and a heroic young 20-year-old sailor saw the arcing, meaning the electrical discharge against grounding metal, and at total disregard for his own life, he went and got that cable plugged back in, which meant on that day in 1967 that they could transmit a plea for support. And I'm getting goosebumps, honestly. I'm so glad we started this conversation. The very first ship that responded to the extremis, and extremis is a legitimate maritime word, and it means extreme death. We need support immediately. The very first ship to respond to the USS Liberty was a Russian Navy ship that said, I paraphrase, I wasn't there, I don't speak Russian, but they were at flank speed, or depending on the Navy that you might serve, they might call it, rather than flank speed, they might call it wartime power. But the Russians said, USS Liberty, this is the Russian Navy vessel, blah, blah, blah. We have turned to a course to intercept you, and we are operating at max speed, and try to defend yourself, and we will be there to take out the people trying to defend you if you can't get it done. Now, if anybody thinks that Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump aren't on the same team, well, you're wrong. And Russia has been an ally of the United States since the Civil War. And I'm talking now as Field McConnell, private individual, no relationship to Jenny, but I've communicated twice with Vladimir Putin through a third party, meaning the Russian Air Force attaché in Washington, D.C., because there were 2 cases where Russian airplanes got shot down. In one case, it was because of the orders of Warren Buffett. How's that for a little new vein of intelligence? And then the second time was on a Christmas where the Russian troops were entertaining somewhere in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, but I think it was Iraq. The Russian band and choir were on I'll think of it here, it's the equivalent of a 727, and that was shot down and destroyed. And it had to be friendly fire. And a friendly fire can either be meaning Russians shooting down a Russian airplane, or Russian chain of command giving the information to some rogue nation to shoot it down. And on those 2 occasions, I sent the information to Vladimir Putin, and I want to point out 2 things. I'm not dead, and I'm not in a mental hospital. Now, was I arrested on November 4th of 2019? Yes. Why was I arrested? Because I know too much. And I've got 2 words for people that think that's a bad thing. And I'm not going to say them because there's ladies here. But I'm not afraid to speak the truth. I'm afraid of what happens to all of our countries if somebody doesn't speak the truth. So when it comes to the truth of MH370, MH17, 9/11, the United States Senior Executive Service, Circle, and I'm forgetting one of my key themes, but I know a great deal about the transgressions of the deep state government of the United States of America. And notice I didn't say anything about Mitch McConnell or the fact that he's a coward and a traitor. I didn't say that at all. And if somebody changes this tape and they inject those words into the record, oh, okay, well, that's okay. I still said I didn't say it, even if I did. I would say that in a court under oath with the penalty of perjury. So I do appreciate your questions. I do think that today, when they rang the bell 88 times at the Vatican, that is somehow related to Heil Hitler, HH, the eighth letter, 88. And so I find all this stuff remarkably supportive. And so I just today, based on that one question from this one young lady, I have a totally different viewpoint of Hitler, but also something I haven't expressed yet because I talk too much. The guy that from the Royal Navy, the commander, whose name was Harold S. Goulding, Goulding, a Royal Navy commander who got Hitler and his finance director out of Berlin before the Russians could kill him. Guess what the no, excuse me. Guess what the UK government, meaning the English government, did to Harold S. Goulding? Okay, I'll tell you. They killed him 3 days after the operation to get Hitler and his finance director out of Berlin. And so if there's anybody, I doubt if there's anybody, because I'm 75 and these people would be 20 years older than me. But the people who wanted to kill Commander Harold S. Goulding, you might have thought you got away with it, but don't think so fast. There's still a few good guys around. Jenny, over to you. And would you thank that lady whose name I think was Cal, but she had some good questions.
Yes, thank you, Cal, for your questions, and thank you, Field. All right, everybody, I've got 8 more minutes, so I'm going to go with Apogee. Your mic is unmuted. Go ahead, and then we'll round out with Derek French. So go ahead, Apogee. You can ask your question to Field. Go ahead, Apogee. Your mic is unmuted. Hit the blue button. All right, Derek French, go ahead. Your mic is unmuted.
Thank you, Field, for all you do and your vast amount of knowledge. I will affirm I'm a born native of Arkansas. Winthrop Rockefeller was Bill Clinton's sperm donor. He was governor of Arkansas in 1966, and Chelsea Clinton is not Bill Clinton's daughter. Just maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't. And GE was renamed in 2024 or General Electric was renamed to GE Aerospace. My question, though, has to do with this psyop we're living in right now. The Pope died. Klaus Schwab stepped down as the chairman of the WEF, which it has to do with finances. And I know Jerome Powell's on the chopping block, which has probably already been done because the Fed was absorbed by the Treasury in what I've read. Now, my question is how close does this put us to the RV blessing? Thanks for all you do.
Well, first of all, I was listening to everything you said. Thank you for confirming who Bill Clinton's sperm donor was, Winthrop Rockefeller, and as far as who Chelsea Clinton's sperm donor was, it was a guy that had a very large lower lip, just like Chelsea Clinton had. And I never can remember. Yeah, but what was his name? Was it Webb
I
Hubble?
Web Oval. Yeah.
Yeah. So these people, and notice for the record, I didn't say assholes. I said these corrupt people that think they got away with it. Well, they haven't gotten away with anything. And if there's a Bill Clinton or a Hillary Clinton or a Chelsea Clinton alive today, they should really enjoy as many milkshakes as they can enjoy because they won't be alive much longer because the good guys outnumber the bad guys. And, I think that if you think back to Bill Cooper from Arizona, there's people that wonder if I was a protege of his. And I just asked a young lady in England to be my archivist because I can't even keep track of myself. And her code name is Angel Mother. And I'm going to go over and share some notes with her in the next 10 days in England. And so that's like my throwing a gauntlet down, letting England know if you don't like my big mouth, go ahead and kill me when I come through Heathrow, but I'm coming anyway. And they haven't killed me yet, and I'm not worried about that. But how come it is that private citizens like this lady, Cal, that just asked the last question, and Jenny and myself, all the three of us, none of us are working for the United States government. I did work for them for 26 years, but I realized I was pissing up a rope because they didn't want peace. They didn't want truth. They wanted control. And I would just reach out to them now and saying, for you deep state and cabal survivors, if you think you can control me, then you probably should do it fairly soon because one of two things is going to happen. You can control me or I can control you. And that's the only two things that can happen. So I really appreciate your comments about Arkansas and about Chelsea and about Hubble and about Winthrop Rockefeller. And by the way, just to titillate you further, sir, I was the captain of a DC-10 one night I think I was going from Amsterdam to Memphis, but I had a passenger on there. I met him at the Blue Room, which means the first class bathroom. Blue Room is because of the blue water in the latrine. And we just started a chat, and it didn't take more than one or two sentences for me to pick up on his accent. And I said, any chance you're from Arkansas? And he said, yes, I am. I said, is there any chance you know who Bill Clinton's biological sperm donor was? And he said, yes, it was Winthrop Rockefeller. Now, that took place on a Northwest airliner when two geriatric men are standing in line to void their bladder. How's that for politeness, Jenny? Void my bladder.
Oh, there you go, Field.
Yeah, but see, that's the advantage when somebody has an airline career. You get exposed, not in that way, of course, but how about F. Lee Bailey? Anybody remember F. Lee Bailey, who was involved in the O.J. Simpson trial?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I met him in the standing in the line to get into the Blue Room of Northwest DC-10, and I recognized him right away. I knew who he was. He didn't know me from dirt, but I just said to him two code words. I said, F.J. Fury, Semper Fi. And he knew what that meant. I was talking about the Navy or Marine model of the F-86, and Semper Fi is Semper Fidelis, which means always faithful, which means Marines. So F. Lee Bailey, the attorney, knew that he was talking to a friend and an ally, even though he thought, this is really weird. We're standing in line to void our bladders, and we're discussing some stuff that is unknown to many people. And we were, but that's been my whole life. I've been very blessed by God, not by me, not by my friends, certainly not by the United States government, who, as recently as November 4th of 2019, tried to intimidate me into shutting up. I don't have that gear. It's like an automatic transmission. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, low. I don't really have a park. I really don't have a neutral, but I've got to drive, and I'm driving and striving for the truth. And so I want to thank Jenny right now for allowing me to bring my version of the truth, which I think is 93.75% accurate, because even if I'm inaccurate on occasion, usually your guests are polite enough to say, Field, I think you need to take a look at this. So I take a look at it, and then I change what I'm going to talk about next time. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Field, and we appreciate your wealth of knowledge. You definitely are getting a lot of truth out there, I think, that a lot of people didn't know. So I want to say thank you for doing that. And everybody, thank you for once again being here. Field is with us every Monday. We're going to possibly try to get him on a little bit more. So stay tuned. We'll keep you posted on that. Derek Johnson will be back with us later on this evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So come back and join us here, everybody. Wednesday, we will have Alpha Warrior over on my X Space, and then we will have Silk as well. Talking to Juan, trying to get him on. He's pretty tough to get, but he's a busy guy. And then going to try to get Rubber Duck and then Josh from Red Pill podcast on as well. So with that, everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. And Field, we'll talk. We'll see you back here on Monday.
Yes, I can't wait. Thank you, Jenny, for the opportunity.
Course, and we'll talk to you on the backside in our little chat. So with that, everybody, God bless you. We'll see you back here for Derek Johnson, and have a great day. Have a great evening wherever you're at. And once again, God bless you all. Take care, everybody. Goodbye, Field.
Yes. Goodbye, Jenny, and God bless everybody, especially the people that brought intelligent questions that challenged my brain. I appreciate that.
Bye
That's how I learn. Bye bye.
bye. Love it. Bye.
You know what? Oh, okay. I'll get in my office, but the door will be cracked open. I'm not trying to hide. I'm done doing what I do.